Hey everyone, it's Jonathan and welcome back to the Disney Movie Marathon. Today we're going to be talking about the live-action remake of Pinocchio, which, as of the release of this episode, literally just came out last week. This kind of timeliness will not be the norm, so hopefully you won't start expecting a new podcast from me every time a new Disney movie comes out. But with the timing of the release of the movie coming out just around the time I was launching this new podcast, I knew I wanted to fit it into the schedule, even if it meant me scrambling for a weekend to make sure it got done. When I covered the original film back in 2018, I'm not sure we even mentioned the fact that a remake had been announced, because at the time, and actually still, it seems like Disney announces a lot of projects, and sometimes they just don't end up ever happening. So I'm kind of taking these as they come. Like, I'm really having my doubts about a live-action Chernobog from Fantasia film at this point. Anyway, joining me for this episode is my friend Eli Sanza. He's a huge Pinocchio fan, and after Sarah and I were a bit negative on the original, I had Eli come on the podcast to point out some of the positives that we had glossed over while talking about how much darker it was than we remembered. So when I realized how the timing was likely going to work out with this new podcast, I asked Eli if he'd be available to join me for this episode as soon as the new movie was out. If there's anyone you can count on for an honest review of Pinocchio, Eli is your man. Okay, so before we start, I just wanted to say that because of the reaction on Twitter, I thought that this was going to be an absolute horrific train wreck. And it wasn't.
No.
It was not a horrible, bad movie, but it was not a good movie either.
I agree. It was not a good movie. It wasn't a bomb, but I kind of understand the reaction.
Yeah. There was a bit of hyperbole, but I think in some ways it's deserved.
Well, yeah, no, I get it, because you know how Twitter kind of likes to exaggerate when they see something bad.
Yes.
Yeah. That's kind of what it was.
Mm-hmm. Well, I guess we can just start at the beginning and talk about each thing that is either new or different.
Yeah, sure.
The first thing is Jiminy Cricket, who he breaks the fourth wall a lot, which I think he sort of did in the first one too, but it seemed weirder in this one. It was him from the future talking to himself in the past. And it was like, this is a weird choice. But there was a lot of weird choices in this movie.
This is the tip of the iceberg.
What did you think of his voice? Joseph Gordon-Levitt did Jiminy Cricket's voice. I would have never known that that's who it was.
No, I would have never known either, because Joseph Gordon-Levitt, which, by the way, this is the same guy who played Jim Hawkins in Treasure Planet, if you can believe it. He does Jiminy Cricket in this movie, and he does a kind of a decent job doing a Cliff Edwards-esque voice. I didn't think it was like it wasn't Cliff Edwards, and Cliff Edwards is Cliff Edwards is kind of a better voice actor.
Yes.
And it's noticeable in some parts, but he was far from the worst thing about the movie.
Oh, totally.
Yeah, so in that regard, I thought he did an okay job.
What did you think of his design?
The Jiminy Cricket's design. It was, well, I didn't know exactly what to expect with his design when you're talking about making a Jiminy Cricket for a live action movie. So it wasn't exactly better than I imagined or worse than I imagined. It was just because I didn't know what to imagine. It was just it's pretty much what I figured it would be. It's he's sort of cartoony in a way. He doesn't look like a cricket. He still doesn't look like a cricket, but he's a little bit more cricket-like in his anatomy, a little bit, just in his skin texture. But I'm not really a big fan of any of the live-action interpretations of a lot of the animated characters, and not because of a nostalgia thing, but just because it's even on its own. This isn't I don't want to say that he's ugly, but he does. he doesn't look as appealing
Yeah.
as
That's kind of what I was thinking too. I think they could have gone a little bit further towards the cartoon version because he did look a little bit too insecty, but I saw a lot of people on Twitter saying that he was horrifically ugly, and I didn't think that, but
that's not.
it it could have been cuter.
Yeah, well, actually, when they designed the original Jiminy Cricket for the animated version, they sort of started out making him a little bit cricket-like, but Walt Disney didn't like it because they didn't like how like ugly a little bit, alien-like the cricket
Hmm.
looked. So that's why when they came to the final design, he was sort of just looked like a mini human a little bit. That's what it kind of
Hmm.
was. So that was the origin of how he looked less and less like a cricket because crickets aren't that appealing.
Hmm.
So when they sort of turned it back around and made him a little bit more cricket-like for the realistic version of the story, it's like that kind of goes back on why they made him look the way he did in the first place. So it's like the whole movie sort of undermines what they did in the past a little bit when you think about it, which is sort of like
Hmm.
one of the reasons why I don't like these movies so much.
Hmm. I will say though, the one thing that I did like about this one over the animated one was his cricket noises. I thought that was cute.
That wasn't bad. I thought that was a nice touch. Yeah.
Yeah. But other than that, I like the cartoon version better.
Yeah, 100%. Sorry, Robert Zemeckis.
And then Geppetto, Tom Hanks.
Yeah. Um,
This kind of went back and forth for me. There were times when I thought he was good, and there were other times like, this is a bizarre performance.
yeah, I agree with that. There are some moments in the film where it's like, oh, this is like, well, Tom Hanks is a great actor. He's a great
Hmm.
actor. Uh, he does some good acting in the film, as you would expect, obviously, with the Tom Hanks performance. But it's not the best of the best, not the best acting he's ever done in his career. I'll put it like that.
Yeah, yeah. One thing I noticed, not just with Geppetto, but like with multiple characters, there's a lot of rhyming in this movie. And I don't remember that in the original. Was that supposed to be like, am I just not remembering something? Like, why are so many people rhyming in this
Uh,
movie?
you know what? There was a little bit of rhyming with the Blue Fairy rhymed a little bit in the animated version. Actually, it they didn't point it out so much as they did in the live action version. It was just like it happened a little bit more naturally.
Yeah, it felt very unnatural in this version.
Yes, exactly. That was kind of a problem for me.
Hmm.
They sort of they sort of made fun of it a little bit.
And another thing that really stood out to me in the beginning, and this is something else that other people have been making much of on Twitter, and I can see why. All the clocks.
Oh my God. I know where you're going with this. I have some things to say about the clocks.
Okay, say them.
Uh, well, uh, on one level, it was kind of fun to see all these clocks because it's like, okay, yeah, I see what they did here. This is a little bit of an Easter egg, and then by the time they stopped showing all the clocks, it was like,
It's
I
not an
don't know.
Easter egg anymore. It's just
It isn't, yeah.
it's way too blatant to be an Easter egg. I
It
saw
was,
somebody on Twitter saying this isn't an Easter egg. It's a whole Easter basket just set in front of you.
yes, exactly. They've kind of ruined the Easter egg elements a little bit because it
Yeah.
was just like, you like Easter eggs so much, here, you have a bunch of them, and then they pour them on our heads. It's like,
If they had been in the background and the camera had not like done any zooming in on them, I would have thought it was a cute, in some cases cool nod and like cool Easter eggs. But like the camera just blatantly zooming in on all of these
uh,
obvious Disney clocks, it was like
yeah.
this isn't creative anymore.
No, no, no. I didn't. One of the things I didn't like about that, you would think that, oh, I was a Disney fan, this would be my favorite part of the movie, but it didn't work for me really because,
Oh.
like, the one of the things I didn't like was that they they lingered on them. Like you
Yes.
said, they stopped the story dead just to focus on them. It was
Hmm.
like that's not good. That's not good direction. What's happening here? It is just you just want to show off all the things you own as a corporation. Is that what this is? Like,
There have been other Easter eggs that have been slightly more blatant in the past, like the genie in Aladdin turning into Pinocchio and then pulling Sebastian out of a book, but they're like really quick. And it makes
yeah,
sense in character for the genie.
yes, yes,
But like that it didn't make sense for Geppetto to know all these stories. There was a lot of stuff that was really anachronistic in the movie too. Like the way Honest John talked, it was like way too modern. Calling Pinocchio an influencer, I'm getting ahead of myself, but like that
yeah,
annoyed me as well. But like it
yeah,
was too on the nose, too anachronistic. Didn't make sense in the story. It it was just it
yeah.
felt dumb instead of an Easter egg.
Well, yeah, well, there's a lot of sort of like modern touches they try to put into the movie, but none of them feel that natural. It kind of feels
No.
like, yeah, that's the problem. It sort of feels forced
Yes.
modernization, and it
Yes.
and it's especially cringeworthy when they try to put that in on the into the humor aspect of the movie when they try to
Hmm.
be funny in a modern way. That
It's just the
that
personification of that "How do you do, fellow kids" meme. It's just
yeah.
so cringy.
Yes, and I've heard a lot of people on Twitter saying that this is very, it's like the biggest cringe movie of all time.
I wouldn't say that, but it had some very cringy moments.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's like I said, exaggeration.
Though another thing that stood out to me at the beginning, and I don't think that this is, I'm like 99% sure this is not from the Disney movie. I don't even remember if it's from the book, but Geppetto having a wife and son who have died. Like I'm pretty sure that's what they were going for with all the nods to like the kid in the picture, and then I think he was talking about a wife. And I thought that was a bit weird, especially because like I've seen a trailer for a different Pinocchio movie coming out later this year. That's like the whole point of the story is Geppetto mourning his lost son. So this, even though that's not out yet, that almost felt like a ripoff of that one.
I mean, it's it's like, hey, this whole movie kind of feels like a ripoff when you think about it. I mean, I'm not surprised. Like even though it's from Disney and it's
Yeah.
and the Disney version is the one that it's mostly based on, it just feels like it's copying that one
And
and
not
but
well.
and not well. But going back to the thing you said about the son and the wife, I noticed that when I was watching, they're going for something different here. They're trying to be more mature about it. It's like they're trying to put like a dark backstory. And it was like, oh, Geppetto, it turns out he was making the puppets because he lost his son, and they weren't outright with it. They were sort of trying to be vague and like, this is
Hmm.
probably what happened. His probably his son died, his wife might have died too, who knows. And yeah, sure. Like that part, I was fine with. Like if they're gonna make a remake of a movie, you might as well do something new with it. So, and I thought that was kind of interesting because, like, hey, what is Geppetto's backstory? No one ever knew
Hmm.
that.
But then it was dropped, never brought up again.
You're right. You're right. It was sort of cheap. It was like a cheap touch.
Yeah. Do you have any thoughts on Figaro and Cleo?
I do. Yeah, Figaro and Cleo. Yeah. Well, it won't come as a surprise to you, but I liked them a lot more in the animated version than I did in
Yeah,
this.
of
And
course.
yeah, 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 yeah. They didn't get showcased a lot. It sort of felt like they were just in there because they
Because they
had
had
to
to
be.
be.
It had to be. Like, yeah, that's exactly right. That's what it felt like. It's like that's my problem with their inclusion. It felt just like pointless. Like, you could have that movie be the same and not have Figaro and Cleo in the movie, and like you wouldn't lose that much because it's not like Figaro and Cleo did anything that interesting. But in the animated version, I liked them because they were sort of like a comedy duo in
Hmm.
that one. They sort of had a lot of hilarious moments, and I really loved Figaro's pantomime, bratty child behavior.
Yes.
And Figaro was funny, but
Yeah.
they completely ruined that or like ignored that. in this
Yeah.
one. And like I feel like if this movie had a better, I don't know, writer or director, they would have like either gotten rid of those characters because they didn't add anything, or they would have gave them more of a purpose.
Or just had them be pets, like not have them be part of the story. Like he has a cat named Figaro and a fish named Cleo, and they're just there. Like that would have been fine for me. It was
Yeah,
weird to have them be full CGI characters and around, but not really doing anything. Like I would have rather just had a pet cat.
exactly. It would have worked better if it were a pet cat that was just a real cat, because
Yeah,
it's not like he needed to. They didn't need it to be a computer animated cat or fish because they weren't in the movie that often. So there was no point to animate them.
yeah. As they were fine, but just fine. Completely
Yeah,
forgettable.
yeah, completely forgettable. Exactly.
And the other main big character from the beginning is the Blue Fairy, played by Cynthia Erivo. I've never seen her in anything else, but apparently she's going to be the star of the Wicked movie, which I've been looking forward to that because I've never seen Wicked and I've heard it's amazing.
Yeah, yeah.
I will say, even though she only had one scene, she's kind of the best part of the movie.
Oh my God, yeah.
I
It was
was I loved her voice. She was a very different looking sort of fairy, but I loved her voice.
Yeah, yeah, I liked her. She was uh, a lot different from the original Blue Fairy, but I liked that. I like when they do something completely different.
Yeah, it's kind of weird because they chose to go in a completely different direction with her, but almost nothing else in the movie. It's like, why can't you do that for more things? Like
Yeah.
we've talked about with Cinderella, which is probably one of the best ones.
Hmm.
That and Pete's Dragon. It's like those work so well because they do their own thing with the source material and they have nods to the original. But nothing in this was it was just like mostly a copy paste with the
Yeah.
exception of the Blue Fairy. Although I will say with the Blue Fairy, they should have had her have more than one scene. I was annoyed that she only had one scene, especially because
Yeah.
she was like the best character.
I know that I heard some people talking about that on Twitter, complaining about that. Like, and I agree. Like, she should have been in more than one scene. I felt like that was the only one, like, what, 4 or 5 minute scene in the entire movie, and like,
Yeah.
they made this movie longer than the animated version, and they added a bunch of new characters in this version that they still couldn't get the Blue Fairy into more than one scene.
Yeah. And they took away her other big scene, which is the lying scene.
Oh yes, you're right. In the scene when the Pinocchio's nose was growing, while he was
Yes.
in that cage, he appeared there,
And
and
she
I think
turned it
that
back. It didn't
yes,
just it didn't just turn back on its own. That was
yes,
weird.
exactly. Yeah, that was one of the weirdest creative choices they made here, because I thought that if the scene when the Blue Fairy helped Pinocchio while his nose was growing and while he was in the cage, the Blue Fairy actually freed Pinocchio from that cage in the original
Hmm.
movie. I thought that the fact that they changed that was very odd, because what they replaced it with was, I think, one of the worst things about the movie. And I don't know if you know what I'm talking about, but I thought this was the scene with the growing nose was like such a terrible creative choice, because
Hmm.
basically what happens is the Blue Fairy doesn't have to tell them in the live action version. Pinocchio and Jiminy Cricket just figure out on their own, oh, every time you lie, your nose happens to grow. And
And then they use it like it's some sort of special gift.
yeah, I know. Exactly. That's where I was going. It's like they use the fact that his lying helps his nose grow to an advantage, so that they can help get the key to help free them from the cage. And I thought, oh, wait a minute. So what is your message here? That lying is okay as long as it helps you? It's like, is that what they're saying here? I was just, my mind was blown by that.
Yeah, they botched the message. They had the message there, but they glossed it over real quick.
Really quick and really badly. It's like in the worst way. Like, how
Hmm.
did that get past the whoever that gets past in order to get on Disney Plus? Like, the message there was just so completely the opposite of what the message was in the first movie. I thought that was like, I was flabbergasted by by how terrible that scene was handled.
Hmm. Well, anyways, after with the Blue Fairy, we come to Pinocchio coming to life, played by Benjamin Evan Ainsworth, who I don't think I've seen him in anything. I looked up his IMDb. It said he was in a different Disney movie called Flora and Ulysses, but I haven't seen that yet. So
Oh
I've
yeah.
I've never seen him in anything.
Yeah, no, I never heard of him either. I actually have seen Flora and Ulysses. I don't remember anything about that movie except for like some like impressive flying squirrel animation, but yeah, I don't remember him in anything.
I did like when Pinocchio first comes to life. I did like that they gave Pinocchio and Geppetto some time together. Like you can tell that there are several days passing instead of Pinocchio coming to life and immediately being sent to school alone the next day.
Yes, yeah, I liked that. There was like, okay, it was like they came to the a part of the movie where Geppetto actually came to the realization, oh, now you know what? Now that we're a family and you're my son now, maybe you should go to school now. And I liked how that unfolded.
Hmm. Although I still have to question why he sent him off alone. Like he has that whole speech about this town is very confusing and you can get lost. So I'm like, why didn't you
Yeah.
just take him to school?
See, that's actually a problem I have with the original movie and this movie. It's
Yeah, yeah.
like Geppetto, what is Geppetto doing all day that's so important to you? Like what he can't walk his wooden puppet boy to school on his first day, like walking outside alive among humans. Like I'm not surprised that he got like kidnapped and swallowed by a whale. Like of course, of course that happened. Like you sent him out into the real world.
He's
That
probably too
yeah.
busy making an Oliver and Company cuckoo clock.
See, this is so questionable. Everything about this. Yeah. Oh yeah. Good one.
Then we meet another character, another brand new character, the seagull named Sophia, who Geppetto feeds garbage to. Like apparently they know each other, like she visits all the time.
Yeah.
And that character is voiced by Lorraine Bracco, and I'm not sure who she is, but she has a very long IMDb page.
Oh yeah, oh yeah. Like the first time I saw her was in The Sopranos. That was like the HBO like
Hmm.
mob drama, and he played Tony Soprano's therapist in that show, and she was great in that role. Like I liked her then, and that was the first time I saw her. But I think he was in things long before that show. I think he might have been in Goodfellas or something from Martin Scorsese, and like back in the early '90s. It's like he's been around. He's a
Mm.
veteran actor.
I kind of figured with the length of her IMDb page,
Oh yeah, yeah,
but I don't think I've seen her in anything because I skimmed and nothing jumped out at me.
right. I do think this might be the first time I've ever seen her in anything. Seen her voice an animated character though.
Hmm. Well, after we meet Sophia, we come to Honest John and Foul Fellow. Honest John is played by Keegan Michael Key, and for some reason, when I heard his voice, I was like, "Oh, Jordan Peele's gonna be Foul Fellow," but apparently not. He's still mute, like he was in the original.
I never thought of that, but that would have been that would have been hilarious if they were Key and Peele played Honest John and Gideon. But they, just like with the original movie, they thought, oh, Gideon would work a lot better as a silent character, and they are right about that. I do think that they work better as I'm the brains, I talk, and you're the dummy, you stay silent, like kind of dynamic. It's more fun.
I did like that gag with taking the giant hammer out of his coat because, like, there's no way that hammer actually is hiding inside the coat,
Yeah,
but like he pulls it open and there's a giant hammer in there. That
I
was cute. I liked that.
I thought that was kind of funny in like a Looney Tunes kind of way.
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
But other than that, I didn't really like their scenes very much. Honest John, like I said, he was way too modern.
Yeah.
The calling him like everybody talked about the Chris Pine joke, which was dumb,
Mm.
but calling him an influencer was way worse to me
Yeah.
anyway.
No, yeah, you're right. I was thinking, oh my God, an influence. When does this movie take place? Is my question. That's what I kept thinking. Like,
Yeah.
it felt like they didn't really. I know you're not probably not supposed to think about stuff like this that often that much. It's like it's a modern movie, so like it's released in 2022, and that's basically the excuse of why they said influencer, and it's just that's all the explanation that you need. But when you're making a movie like this, I would have put a little bit more thought into like the authenticity of it and the
Hmm.
time of it, and that's why I think this was poorly directed.
If they were going for more of a Shrek-like feel, then I could see them getting away with a joke like that. But this wasn't supposed to be a spoof of Pinocchio. This is supposed to be actual Pinocchio.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. I completely agree, and that's why I thought it didn't. That's why it felt so unnatural and
Hmm.
not well done.
I should say too, there was one joke in here that I hated with Pinocchio stopping to sniff a pile of horse manure for
Oh
some reason.
yeah, oh yeah, I forgot about that.
That
Oh
was
my god,
like, who thought of this joke? And who said, yes, this is a good joke for a Pinocchio movie. Let's put it in.
that was weird. I was like. It's like I'm sure they were they were trying to go for disgusting like bathroom humor to try to appeal to kids. It's like they do that all the time, but like this one was, it again, it felt out of place and it felt forced. It felt very forced.
Yeah. Moving on to Stromboli, he was voiced by, or he wasn't voiced, he was played by Giuseppe Battistone, who I believe is an Italian actor because I didn't recognize anything he was in, and they looked like a lot of Italian titles.
Uh,
So I think they just got an actual Italian to play him, which he
Apparently,
wasn't bad. He was fine, but
yeah.
I don't know. I didn't feel too strongly about him. The one in the animated version is far more terrifying, if you ask me.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, you're right. Like I said before I even saw what the new Stromboli was going to look like, even before I saw him, I thought anyone who's going to replace the animated Stromboli is going to be lesser in comparison. I just know it, and it's
Mm-hmm.
not gonna. I can just tell, and because the animated Stromboli was so great
Mm-hmm.
and so well animated by Bill Titla that I can't imagine a human actor being as great. And so that part, the fact that he wasn't as great as the animated Stromboli did surprise me. I knew he wouldn't be. I knew he wouldn't be, but the actor that they got, he wasn't bad. I was hoping that he would be as sinister and as terrifying as the animated version because I liked that aspect of the character, but he wasn't. He wasn't.
Mm-hmm.
He was sort of just not very threatening in any outstanding way.
He was just a terrible person. That was
Yeah,
all.
yeah, thank you. He was just a terrible person, and that was all.
In this scene, you meet another new character, Fabiana,
Yeah.
and I didn't recognize her from anything. I looked her up. She only had two IMDb credits, one of which was this movie, so she must be a new actress.
Yeah.
And I wasn't sure exactly what they were going for with her because she had a new song and she described herself as half human, half marionette in the song. And she had like a leg brace. I'm like, am I supposed to take that literally? Or like, I don't know. There's so many weird choices in this movie. I didn't know if she actually was supposed to be half marionette. But she mostly speaks through a marionette because Pinocchio says he doesn't trust her. The only human he trusts is his father, so he speaks to her through her puppet named Sabina. But the puppet has a different voice than her. Like, because I looked it up and there was a voice actress who played the puppet, not her. It was,
that's,
it was
that's
a strange choice.
that is a strange choice. I was assuming that she probably voiced the puppet because you would. I thought you were supposed to. I thought they were implying that she voiced the puppet in the
I
movie,
think they
but
were, but the puppet had a different voice actress according to IMDb. Fabiana was played by Kian Lamaya, and the voice of Sabina was Jaquita Talay. I think I'm pronouncing that correctly, but either way, IMDb had two different actors for the characters.
okay.
It
I
was
mean, that's
weird.
not a. Yeah, that's pretty much all of my reaction is to it. It's kind of weird, but okay. I do
Yeah,
sure. I mean, it's not like people can't pretend to have a different voice in real life. This is voice acting as a profession, so I guess that's what they did, and they just decided to like really go for it with a completely different voice and for the
yeah.
characters. Sure, why not? I guess.
And they also have this. subplot of really the only other puppeteer you see is this Fabiana character, but she says that she and the other puppeteers are planning on escaping and taking back their money from Stromboli because apparently he stole all their money. I'm not sure exactly what happened, but like he's obviously a terrible person anyway. So she like tries to recruit Pinocchio, but he wants to escape, and like they're interrupted. You have Jiminy Cricket. He was trapped earlier, so he escapes when the thing comes by and knocks a rock onto the jar that he was trapped under. But they had weird foreshadowing earlier. This is another one of the weird choices. Earlier in the movie, he made a comment about loose gravel and a rock being launched by a passing wagon wheel and hitting somebody. And then that actually happened. I was like, well, what? Why? Why? That's like the weirdest foreshadowing. Like you could have just had that happen. You don't need to have a whole scene dedicated to this long explanation about why a rock could get launched by it was weird. It was just a weird choice.
Yeah, I have a feeling that they gave the foreshadowing of that moment just to make it seem not to like do ex machina when the rock frees him from the jar, and it's like, but it didn't. It felt very on the nose and not like it didn't happen in a very like smooth way. But that's the whole movie for me, so that's not surprising.
It felt like a joke that should have been cut in the second draft of the script.
Well, yeah, that's the whole movie for me. But
yeah,
but yeah, that's what I would. That's my reaction to that statement.
and also during all this, you also have Geppetto going out to look for Pinocchio, and even in the original, I always thought it was weird that he brought Figaro and Cleo with him, but having it be live action just highlights how bizarre that is. Like he takes an entire fish bowl, water and all, out to search for his missing son. Just leave the fish at home.
I know.
Like with the rain coming down, like Cleo's waters, the pH balance is going to be thrown off and she's going to die.
The fish is going to die. I was thinking that if that fish bowl overflowed, that fish was going to die. That's what I kept thinking. And that was like.
And also bringing her out onto the open ocean, like even though her bowl could be refilled, it's going to be refilled with salt water, and she'll die from that too.
This is another example of why it seemed like the people who were making this movie were not thinking. It just felt like they were. It didn't seem like they were taking the story seriously. That was what I didn't like. It was like if I were directing this movie, I would have thought about things like this, and the fact that they weren't just made it seem like insulting my intelligence.
Yeah. Yeah, and then you have the scene we already talked about with the weird lying and glossing over the morality tale aspect of that.
And there were like maybe three things. There were a lot of things in the movie I didn't like, but there were like maybe three things I thought were outstandingly bad. And like that scene with where he used his growing nose to help him get free was like one of those. One of those. I'll point out the other two as we go, but that was one of the three worst aspects of the movie.
Yeah. Anyways, so yeah, his growing nose helps them escape, and it magically turns back for some reason. I don't remember why. I don't think it was ever really explained too well, but it just happens. Then he gets kidnapped immediately after they escape.
Yeah, immediately. Yeah.
So then you have the coachman, played by Luke Evans, who also was in the Beauty and the Beast remake as Gaston.
Yes.
And I still haven't seen the Beauty and the Beast remake. I'm kind of just waiting until I get to it in the podcast to watch it.
You're not in a hurry or anything.
No, when it was first announced, I thought, oh, this could be good. And then the reviews started coming in. I was like, I don't really care anymore.
I'll watch it when I watch it.
Yeah. And then you have Lampwick also, who is played by Llewyn Lloyd. On IMDb, it said he was in an episode of Doctor Who, but I don't remember him. So,
yeah, I've never seen him before, but I did like him in this. He was a good Lampwick, I thought.
He was good, yeah. But he was like most of the other actors in the movie. It wasn't like super standout to me. He was fine.
Yeah, he wasn't outstanding or anything, but like I liked he got really into the role. He was like of a
Mm,
like
yeah,
of
he was
Oliver.
he was very awful, but he's supposed to be.
Yeah, yeah. He was like he reminded me of like a Charles Dickens like street ragamuffin character. Like that felt like they were going for a little bit.
Hmm. And there's another new song in here. I don't remember. I don't know if I knew what it was called. The coachman singing about real boys. I don't remember the whole. The song was kind of
Um,
forgettable.
yeah, I think there was something he was singing about like something about how like peer pressure is a good thing or something like that.
I don't remember. It wasn't that great. But I
Yeah,
also noticed in this scene that he doesn't just steal boys in this one, he steals girls too.
yeah, I noticed that.
It was like very specific in the old one that he only stole naughty little boys, but he just steals any child who's bad.
Yeah, I have a feeling that they changed that because they didn't think that they didn't want to leave girls out by saying, "Oh, only boys can be bad." No, no, girls can be bad too. Let's not be sexist, dude. That's
That's
a kind of
that's that's kind of what I was thinking. It was just another strange, not really strange change. It was just a change, and I didn't feel one way or the other about it. It makes sense because like all children can be naughty. So
yeah, yeah. I didn't really like think it was a good change or a bad change either. I thought it was fine. It was like sure, why not? Girls let girls like throw bricks at stained glass windows too. Like
dump a full grand piano down a flight of stairs. That did
yeah,
make me laugh.
yeah, yeah. No, I do like the Pleasure Island scenes. It was like kind of hilarious.
Yeah, the for all the changes that they made, Pleasure Island was mostly fine. The big change here was that they replaced alcohol and cigars with root beer, candy, and fast food. Like there was like hamburgers and stuff. Like it was a lot of junk food, but like it was mostly they turned it into gluttony rather than alcohol and tobacco, which I don't know. I guess that's fine, but it felt weird because like the alcohol was supposed to be like really shocking that these awful children are guzzling beer. And like the whole
Yeah.
point is that these are awful children. So it just felt kind of weird to say that root beer is as bad as alcohol.
And yeah, that was my other problem with this movie. And I told you I was going to tell you what the two other worst things about this movie are, and that's number two, the fact that they replaced beer with root beer. Because when when you think about the fact that these kids are being punished for being bad, not just punished, they're transformed into donkeys, and we don't even know if those kids are okay. Then they might have stayed donkeys for their life,
Mm-hmm.
like for all we know. And I think eating fast food and root beer is kind of a harsh punishment for that, is being transformed
Yeah.
into a donkey and sold like a slave. I feel like that didn't really land for me.
Mm-hmm. It was just one of many weird choices, but it was one of the ones that stood out the most.
Yeah, and I kind of get why they did it. Even though I don't agree with it, I sort of understand it because they were probably thinking, kids drinking beer, should we? Like that's kind of risque, and like,
We can't
but
show them drinking beer, but we can show them being trafficked into human slavery.
exactly, it makes no sense, and especially when the point of them drinking beer isn't to say that it's okay for kids to drink beer, and
Yeah.
they made that clear when they got transformed into donkeys. So I
Hmm.
don't see why it just felt like a really ill-advised change, because it felt like it was just like they didn't think about it, how it made sense in the story. They cared about was, I don't want to see kids drinking beer. That's too much. And then
Hmm.
that ruined the story.
Yeah. Like I said, most of the Pleasure Island scene was fine, and it was like the implications. The whole scene wasn't as disturbing as the original in some ways, but the implications were still just as disturbing. But
Yeah.
it could have been done better, and I think that having them actually drinking alcohol and smoking cigars would have really hit the point home that these are really bad kids.
Yeah, I mean, some kids can only afford to eat fast food because they're in poverty, and like,
That's true.
so
I didn't even think of that aspect. Yes.
that makes it even worse when you think about it in that way. But yeah, that's just not to get dark or anything, but
Yeah, well, it's
I
true.
that yeah, no, that's what I thought about when I was watching it. That ruined it for me too.
Hmm. And another change here is that Sophia the Seagull knows where they went, and she brings Geppetto a flyer for Pleasure Island so that he can find them. But my question is, when he sees this flyer, he knows exactly what it is and where they've gone. So it's like, if people know about Pleasure Island, why does it still exist? Why haven't the
Oh,
authorities hunted down this island and gotten rid of the coachman?
oh my God, I never thought of that, but that doesn't make sense. Like Pleasure Island it's got posters everywhere. People know about it. They know apparently Geppetto knows how to get there. So
And he
it's
knows it's a horrible place. So that was strange.
that was strange. Why does that place? Why aren't they shutting down that place? That's super weird. Yeah, like another reason why I think that they might have not been thinking very hard when they were making this movie. I think that
Hmm.
might be another example of that.
Yeah. Then we come to the transformation scenes and where you find out about the donkeys being children. And you actually see the henchmen of the coachman in this one. And I remember when I rewatched the original, when I rewatched the original a few years ago for the podcast, I hadn't remembered the henchmen of the coachman, but they're not really visible very much. You just kind of catch glimpses of them, and they're more like shadowy figures. But in this one, they're like smoke monsters. It was bizarre.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know what I wanted them to do for the henchmen in this version because it's not like I knew exactly what they did with the henchmen in the animated version either. They looked sort of like shadowy gorilla like
That's
figures.
what I thought when I watched it. I was like, are those supposed to be like gorillas? Like you
Yeah,
couldn't really tell.
yeah, you couldn't really tell, but it seemed like you weren't. It seemed like they weren't thinking about it. They were just like, "Oh, these are the henchmen. What should the henchmen look like? Let's just make them like evil, dark, like creepy things, and let's not think about what they are, or if they're human or not, or monsters." That's which might have been probably the least creative decision they made in that movie, possibly because like they probably could have like thought harder about what the henchmen were. But I do think that the choice they made with the live action version uh was sort of it was interesting, but like they didn't really make it clear what they are and why are they were clearly like
Yeah.
magical like monster creatures and they didn't really explain why they exist or where they came from, so it's sort of weird. It was just one of those things where you just have to accept. That's what it felt like.
I feel like I would have preferred them to do something closer to the original in that you just don't really see them. Because like in the original, they're like in the background and they're not much more than shadows. And I feel like
Yeah,
just having them be shadows would have been better. Like you never really get a good look at them. Like I feel like
yeah.
that would have improved it a lot.
Yeah, I feel like that would have been better actually. That would have been a good like to not focus so much on like the shadow monster thing. It would have saved them some money in the
Hmm.
budget too. So like they don't always have to use special effects when they can. I
Hmm.
thought it would have worked better if there was just like an ordinary like shadow in the background or something like that. But yeah, yeah, no, I agree with you.
What did you think of the transformation sequence, like Lampwick in particular?
It was not surprisingly, I didn't like it as much as the animated version. The animated version was like a lot better staged and directed. This
Hmm.
one wasn't bad. Like
Yeah.
well, on its own, the sequence you could still sort of tell it was like the horror aspect of like, oh
Hmm.
my god, like the child transforming into a donkey. It was sort of creepy still, but like within the context of the rest of the movie, it sort of loses its impact because
Yeah.
we all know what the rest of the movie is like. So
Hmm.
it's putting this scene in it doesn't improve it that well because it's like it. Although if I want to say something positive about it, it's like I did think it was probably one of the most like effective scenes in the movie for what it was.
Yeah, I think it was fine. And if I had never seen the original, I think it would be creepy and disturbing as they intended. But this
Mm-hmm.
one just felt like it had less bite. I don't know. It wasn't as creepy as it could have been because I think the
Yeah,
original was creepier. And
yeah, I felt
they
that.
could have really upped the horror on this if they wanted to.
Actually, I agree with you, and I kind of feel like they were holding back of kind of like
They definitely were holding back because they didn't even have, like, I was waiting for one of the donkeys to start screaming and crying as a child because that
yeah,
was one of the most disturbing things in the original, and that never happened. And that
yeah,
felt intentional, like, oh no, we can't have this be too disturbing, but like
yeah.
it needed that.
Yes, it needed that in order for you to understand how bad it was, and for you to be satisfied when the happy ending finally comes.
Hmm.
Like, although the donkey, like I said, the donkeys are never seen again. That's kind of,
The donkeys don't get a happy ending, but Pinocchio does.
they don't get a happy ending. But like, I guess the idea behind that is that, oh well, they were bad kids, but
Yeah,
so they, although it, I still don't think they deserve to be donkeys. Like it, like
no, no.
if they had known they were going to get turned into donkeys, they probably would have never gone to Pleasure Island in the first place. That's
Hmm.
what I was getting. I was getting the idea for that when they were yelling for their mommy.
Yeah, but yeah, they managed to escape. And there's some more weird foreshadowing here when Jiminy Cricket talks about Monstro being a giant sea monster that is like an island, like he lives on the water. And
You're
it was
right.
weird foreshadowing. It was like, do we really need him to lampshade Monstro? Like, just have it be a surprise. Just don't say it's coming.
Yeah, you know what? Like, well, if you remember the part when Moscow was introduced in the movie and how they first saw him, it would have been it would have been great if that was the first time
Hmm.
he ever popped up and they didn't
Hmm.
even mention him before that. That would have been even more effective and even more terrifying.
Hmm. But they managed to get back to land. They get back home, and the seagull comes along again and tells them that Geppetto is gone. He sold all his clocks to buy a boat so he could get to them on Pleasure Island. So they go back to the water. I don't know if they're going to swim or what, but they go back to the pier. And then Stromboli's cart comes along. So Pinocchio hides under the pier. But it turns out it's not Stromboli, it's Fabiana.
Yeah.
And she pops her puppet down to talk to Pinocchio. And they invite him to join them because Stromboli has been arrested and they now run the show,
Yeah.
which felt strange. But I will say that one of my biggest, I don't know if this is a criticism or not, but like one of the issues I had was that none of the bad guys in the original get any sort of comeuppance.
Yeah.
So it's sort of satisfying that Stromboli gets something. But like if I
Yeah.
was to choose a bad guy to get some comeuppance, I would have rather it been the coachman.
Yeah. I mean, the coachman did something a lot worse. I mean, at least Stromboli wasn't harming any humans.
Stromboli just stole a puppet and stole some money. He was just a bad guy. The coachman is a straight up child thief.
Yes, exactly. That's yeah. I mean, yeah. I was like, okay, Stromboli got arrested. That didn't happen in the original movie, so that was kind of satisfying. Although, like, if you remember about the child trafficking, it sort of
Yeah,
lessens the impact.
yeah, yeah. It was fine. It was nice to have a little bit of closure with her character because of the new characters, I did like her. Like I liked her better than the seagull for sure.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
The
yeah. No,
seagull
I do.
was a weird choice too, but it's
Yeah,
another one of
yeah.
those whatever things.
Yeah, exactly. No, I did like that the fact that Stromboli got arrested. I had like because I kind of liked Fabiana as a character. She wasn't bad.
Hmm.
Like so I wanted her to have a happy ending.
Yes. And then they have another strange deviation from the original, but it's another one that it's fine, but I don't really understand what they were going for because when she offers to have him join their troop, he refuses, so his donkey features disappear.
Oh yeah,
I don't really know why that was linked to him refusing to join her troop.
yeah. That was kind of a odd choice because yeah, it was different from the original movie. Obviously, the donkey ears stayed on him until he became a real boy again. In the
Yeah,
original, it was on him for the entire last third of the film.
yeah.
So I guess the idea here was they wanted to get rid of the donkey ears. They didn't want him to have the donkey ears for that part
Hmm.
of the movie anymore.
That's the only thing I could think of.
Yeah, that's what I was assuming. And I guess they just wanted to come up with some idea for how does he get rid of them. And I guess that's what they came up with.
So they come up with the idea of having the seagull haul them out to sea with Pinocchio basically water skiing behind the seagull.
Hey, yeah.
And I'm like, they just had this whole thing about he's too heavy for her to carry, but he's not too heavy for her to go as fast as a speedboat in order for him to water ski across the ocean. How strong and how fast is this seagull?
Yeah, it's like I don't know what the rules are with like talking seagull anatomy, but that was kind of strange. Yeah.
There was a lot of strange choices about any sort of locomotion on the ocean with Pinocchio, but
Yeah.
whatever.
Yeah, whatever. I mean, we got a talking cricket here that looks like a human, so whatever. The rules are out the window.
Yeah. I guess I don't know if they were just trying to avoid having the question be asked like how did he Jiminy Cricket survive going across the bottom of the ocean? Because I had that question in the original. But
Oh
like
yeah.
there's so much else in this movie that doesn't make sense. What's one more thing?
Yeah,
And
exactly.
and really I liked even though I thought it was weird that he survived the trip on the bottom of the ocean, I liked that scene because all of the creatures, like I loved all those little seahorses and all the little anemones, and
Yeah,
it
yeah,
was a
yeah.
cool looking scene, and I was waiting for that, and we never got it.
Yeah, no, I agree with you because it was like, yeah, it was like, why is this the thing that makes you say, oh, this makes no sense, let's not do that. So, like, of
Hmm.
all the things in this movie that don't make sense, and I understand the idea of, okay, well, Jiminy Cricket and Pinocchio can't talk underwater because that would be too weird in live action, and it wouldn't like be believable. I don't know, maybe, and that's why they changed it, but that's actually what I think is probably what happened, and the only thing that they could think of to get them out at sea was the seagull and pulling him along while he's water skiing, and like that seems like it's not exactly an improvement of what they
No,
could have like. It's different, but I don't know if it's the better choice.
yeah, it was just one of many, many bizarre choices.
Yeah.
They eventually find Geppetto, and they have this whole long conversation as he's water skiing towards him. And I didn't really like the conversation. It felt weird.
Yeah. This was like it was a really long scene. It was like from like him discovering Pinocchio to from him hearing Pinocchio, thinking, "Oh, is that Pinocchio? Maybe I'm hearing things." To him finally seeing him, to finally arriving to into each other's arms. It felt like when are we going to get to the emotional satisfaction of the hug already? Let's get to it. Like, what is this?
With as
I
fast
mean,
as the seagull was flying, to have him be water skiing, it felt like he should have gotten to the boat way quicker than he did.
I know, I know exactly. It was like, and it was kind of a weird scene because they were like trying to be comedic with it when he was like telling them all the things that happened,
Hmm.
and and Geppetto and Tom Hanks said, "You did all that in one day," and which was kind of funny. I'll give
I,
them
I
that, but
liked I liked his line, mostly that line specifically, and probably only that line because he followed that up with, "That's more than I've done in my entire life."
Yeah, you're right.
That made
Yeah.
me laugh, but the rest of the conversation felt weird and forced.
Yeah, exactly.
And then just as Pinocchio is about to get to him, he's eaten by Monstro. And I'm like, what the heck is Monstro? Because that ain't a whale.
That's not a whale. No, I was like, when I was looking at Monstro for the first time, I was thinking like, was that a tentacle? Like, what is that thing? Like,
He really was a sea monster. Like when he said sea monster at the beginning, or not the beginning, but like midway through the movie, I thought they were just exaggerating. Like when somebody says sea monster,
yeah,
it's like I figured they were using sea monster as a description of this whale,
no,
but he really is a sea monster. He's not a
yes,
whale.
exactly. I thought the same thing. I thought Jiminy was saying that like I thought that he might have known it was a whale, or he was supposed to be a whale, but he just called him a sea monster because he was like a particularly monstrous whale, and so
Mm-hmm.
he just nicknamed him sea monster. But no, he's actually a sea monster. He looked like some kind of like missing link like creature or something.
He looked like one of those creatures. I've never seen any of these movies, but there's a film company called The Asylum that does really horrible, low budget, bad special effects movies. And he looked like one. There's one I think called Sharktopus or something like that. That's like
Um,
half octopus, half shark, and that's what Monstro looked like.
oh yeah, yeah.
I think Monstro was a little bit better designed than something from the Asylum, and certainly the animation was better. But it was still a strange choice to actually turn this whale into a tentacled sea monster.
Yeah, it's like, and this is one of those choices I thought was kind of weird because it's like, okay, well, why did they make that change? It's not like it would have been less threatening if it was an actual whale, or
Mm-hmm.
they might. I have a feeling they did that because they thought that a whale would just be too boring because it's just a whale. It's just an ordinary animal. You see that at SeaWorld. Like we want a monster like with like a mythical monster. That would be better. But I didn't think that was necessary. I didn't think that was necessary at all, especially when he was a whale in the first movie, and the first movie worked perfectly fine. So it was like another unnecessary change, I thought.
Yeah. I mean, I liked the design well enough because, like, I like monsters in movies. Like, I like creatures. So I liked
Yeah.
the design. It just felt weird, like a weird, unnecessary change. Like there's so
Yes.
much in the movie that they could have changed and they didn't. They took one of the things that should have stayed the same and changed that instead.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. I don't know why. If I had to ask the filmmakers of this one thing, I would ask them a lot of things. But if I had to ask them one thing, it might be that, like, why? Because that's the one thing I sort of don't understand. Why isn't Monster a whale? Like, it's almost classic that the
Hmm.
villain in Pinocchio is supposed to be a whale. So changing that was kind of odd.
Yeah. They do escape the same way, starting a fire, but I don't think that they stayed in the stomach as long as they did in the original, which I guess is fine, but I kind of was expecting more stuff to happen in the stomach rather than being swallowed and like immediately figuring out how to escape.
Yeah, the scene inside of Monstro's belly lasted a lot longer in the animated
Hmm.
version. This one where they escaped really quickly in this one, and that sort of made it seem it kind of made it seem a little less threatening when it happened. They just were swallowed by a whale and then immediately escaped.
Yeah. But then also, to escape, Pinocchio basically becomes a speedboat. Like when they get out of the mouth, the boat breaks in half, and Pinocchio gets outside and starts, I guess, spinning his feet. I'm not sure
Yeah,
exactly what's happening, but I think somebody said something like spinning. So he basically becomes a motorboat to escape Monstro.
yes, yes, and if you remember the scene where the scene with Stromboli when he was on the stage during the "I've Got No
Oh
Sleep,"
yeah. His
they set that up. If
yeah.
yeah,
That was another weird choice, but I guess in hindsight, they were probably foreshadowing that, oh, he can move his feet really fast.
Yeah, which even in the I've got no strings scene, I thought the fast feet thing was kind of weird because okay, well that didn't happen in the original movie, so they created that kind of for this,
Hmm.
and it was kind of a weird choice because it's like okay, it's like can any marionette do anything like that or like it's just the ones that have human traits like that come to life by blue fairies that are able to do that. It's sort of weird.
Yeah, I don't know.
But like you said, he used his feet as like a kind of like a speedboat, which I kind of thought this was like a ridiculous story mechanic. It kind of made him look like a superhero or something.
Actually, I'm just thinking it kind of reminds me of Mrs. Incredible and Dash becoming a boat in The Incredibles.
Yeah, I didn't think of that. It was kind of like Dash from The Incredibles. It's like, yeah, maybe
But
that's what I.
it works in that because they're superheroes. In this one, it's just a little wooden puppet, so it seems weird.
Yeah, it was weird. It's like a little wooden puppet boy is like pushing a boat with a human inside it at full speed. Like I don't know if this worked physically. I don't know.
No, it did
No,
not.
no, that was totally unbelievable.
And then we come to the end. They escape, and Geppetto is the one who dies
Right.
instead of Pinocchio, which was already a weird choice, but it gets weirder and gets worse because
Yeah.
up until this point, I was like, this movie is fine. Like, it's not, it's whatever. Like, it's
Yeah.
straight down the middle. I don't care one way or the other. I probably wouldn't watch this again. But then you have Geppetto dying. Pinocchio cries a single tear, lands on his cheek. There's some blue fairy magic. He wakes up, and then he doesn't turn into a real boy. And then
Uh,
Jiminy comes in. He says some long spiel about many stories have been told about him, and nobody knows if he actually changed. Like, why on earth
oh
did
my.
you tell this whole entire story about him trying to become a real boy, and then he doesn't become a real boy? That was like, at that point, I'm like, this this just went from a straight down the middle whatever movie to I'm actively and like most of these live action remakes have not bothered me one way or the other. I think they're unnecessary. It's like whatever, but this one turned me into actively annoyed with the movie.
Oh
Like
my
I
God.
still can't say that I hate it because it's whatever. But the
Yeah.
end made it so it's like I don't think I would ever watch this again, and I can't even recommend it to somebody who's curious about it. I'm like, it doesn't have a good ending.
Yeah.
This is like
Yeah.
they they managed to sail through the movie and make it extremely mediocre, and then they still managed to trip over their feet and land face down in the mud
Yeah.
with the movie
I
at the
know
end.
they made it the worst. Like they made it worse than every other scene that came before it at the very end. Like
Yeah,
that was impressive. That's impressive. But
of all the things to change of the movie, the one thing
I
that you should never change about the story of Pinocchio, they decided to change.
I was so like surprised by this because it was like this. By the way, before I go on, this is my number three
Oh, I
worst.
figured. I
Yeah,
figured that.
you figure it. But but anyway, this it was such a weird choice when I saw this because I was like, wait a minute, did the movie just end? Was that it? Because
Yeah.
like of all the things about the story, if you're not gonna make the end of the story be the fact that the puppet turns into a real boy, that's kind of like Snow White staying asleep forever at the end of Snow White. That's what it kind of felt like. It was like, wait a minute, what was the
Hmm.
point of all that? If you're going to change the movie and have a bunch of things that are the same as the original movie, and they're going to do all these different things, and like the fact that he turns into a human is one of the things you didn't. like about the original is like what was the problem with that? I if somebody said that they thought that they changed it maybe because uh it maybe they had the scene where he turned into a human in the test screenings, and maybe people thought, oh, maybe they didn't like it, so maybe they didn't like him as a human, so they decided to edit it and cut it, and maybe that's what happened. Maybe they wanted to and they changed it post production or something, but it doesn't matter because regardless, it's like it's such a terrible way to end the movie.
Hmm.
Like you went through all of that, and he doesn't even turn into a human anymore. It's like that. Like I don't even know what they were going for with the
No,
ending.
yeah.
Like he might have turned into a human, but he might not have. Like this is supposed to be like a fairy tale. It's like it's very cut and dry. Like
Hmm.
why couldn't we be clear about the most important satisfying thing about the story?
Hmm.
It was really weird.
Absolutely bizarre.
Yeah. Yeah, and like I kind of was with you on thinking it was just blah up until that point, but that was like that sort of tipped the boat over right as it
Hmm.
docked at the shore. Like it was like all of a sudden it was like that was the weirdest choice they made in the entire film. Like,
Yeah. I'm on the fence about whether I want to call the movie as a whole a bad movie because I have seen actual bad movies, and this is not one of them. This is
yeah,
extremely mediocre up until the end, and then the end is what ruins it.
yeah, exactly. Yeah,
Not that it was amazing to be ruined in the first place. Like it wasn't like I was expecting a great ending, but I wasn't expecting that ending.
yeah, it was
Like that
so
that shocked me. Like I could not believe that they went and changed the ending so that he never turns into a real boy. He just
that.
maybe he did.
Yeah, it's like
We don't know. Maybe he
that,
did, maybe he didn't. What?
that
What?
was shock. It was like such a terrible choice, and it was so abrupt. It was like, wait a minute, it's
Yes.
not, it's not over, is it? And then it was in, and then the credits came, and I was like, yeah,
I
it
I
was.
even sat through the whole credits waiting for like a mid-credit scene or a post-credit scene. Like there's got to be something. They couldn't just end it there, could they? But they did.
Yeah, like I do agree with you that it's not a terrible movie because, like you said, I've watched a lot of movies too. I've seen bad movies. This is not a bomb or anything like that.
Hmm.
There are some scenes that are actually good, and I actually thought the movie was okay for the first few minutes.
Yeah. When it first started, because like I had heard so many people on Twitter talking about how dreadful this movie was, and through the whole first act, it was like, this is fine-ish. Like
Yeah,
it had some things that were weird changes, but like I really liked the Blue Fairy. But then after that, when he went outside, and then things just started going downhill, never to a really awful place like people on Twitter were saying and I expected. So maybe the my expectations were sufficiently lowered, so it seemed like it was better than I thought it was going to be. But
right.
up until the end, it was just fine, whatever. This is an unnecessary remake. And I can't really like be mad about the ending because I didn't really care to begin with, but like it's the story of Pinocchio.
Yeah, I know.
Why?
Yeah, exactly. It was the criticism towards the ending. It doesn't have so much to do with like the a writing choice or anything like that, or like a bad review. It's not, it has nothing to do with like it ruined the movie. It's just sort of like of all the things to change, this is like such an important part of the story. It's so
Yeah.
foundational to what Pinocchio is that he turns into a human at the end of the story, and to change that is it's almost blasphemous in my mind. It's almost blasphemous. It's like,
Almost, yeah.
yeah, it's just, I mean, I say almost because it's like, okay, well, once this movie is over, all I have to do is just not think about it ever again,
Yeah.
and it'll be fine. So it's if they want to make a bad Pinocchio movie, go ahead, but like I'm not gonna say nice things about it if you do. That's
It's funny because later this year, I'm eventually planning on watching all the Pinocchio movies that are coming out this year and doing a mini series on my Every Version Ever podcast. And I've been thinking all this time that the Russian one with the bad voice acting is going to be the worst one. But now I'm kind of thinking, what if this is going to be the worst
Oh
one?
my God. It's and
The other
who
one looked
knows?
kind of hilariously bad. Like maybe it'll be ironically good for how bad it is. And this one is just so mediocre that it can't be good. So the other one is better by default.
That's the worst. Like, can you imagine? Like,
I did not expect that. I really thought that this one was going to be fine enough. I didn't think it was going to be better than the one by Guillermo del Toro coming in December. I figured that one is probably going to be the best one. I
yeah.
figured this would be under that, but I didn't think that it would be so actively mediocre that it might end up being worse than the one that looks bad.
Yeah. Oh no, well, especially when you got especially when the guy who's directing it was the guy behind Back to the Future and Who Framed Roger Rabbit and Castaway. The Polar Express wasn't great, but that was better than this. Like I
I,
thought, like
I kind of agree because, like, up until now, if somebody had asked me if I wanted to watch Polar Express, I'd be like, no. Like, I know that movie has its fans. Like, there are people who love the Polar Express. I have not been able to get past the dead eyes in all the characters. But like, if somebody gave me the choice of rewatching this and the Polar Express, I would choose Polar Express hands down. I
yeah.
don't like I said, like most of these remakes, I haven't disliked. Like they're fine. I probably wouldn't rewatch them unless somebody else wanted to. I feel like this one, if somebody wanted to rewatch it, I'd be like, can't we just watch something else?
Okay, yeah, no, I would say, can't we watch the animated version instead? That's what I would say.
Yeah. Like, and
Like,
I don't even love the animated version like other people do. I think it's good. I think it's a great movie. It's weirder in hindsight than I thought it was. Like, I really liked it as a kid. I watched it a lot, and watching it as an adult is a weird experience because it's, especially like the whole child trafficking thing. It's
yeah,
weird, but it's still an amazing movie.
yeah. Well,
And
compared to the live action one, though,
oh yeah, no, hands down. Like that's
yeah,
miles and miles better than this one. It's
yeah,
even though I don't love the original Pinocchio as an animated film, it's still a masterpiece. This
yeah.
is not.
No, yeah, no, yeah. It's especially since I one of my least favorite things. I know I said a lot of bad things about this movie, but like one of my least favorite things was just the fact that it was just I don't really like it when movies like copy other movies, and
Hmm.
this one, it's a remake. It copied a lot of things from the animated version, which I felt was kind of like, oh, this is like lesser filmmakers copying from better filmmakers, and it didn't feel like artistic. It just felt like
Yeah,
I'm being. It felt like a job to the people making this.
yeah. It's like there's a lot to criticize about the live action Lion King, and the live action Lion King is almost the same as this one in that it's almost a copy paste of the original. But at least with that one, the point that they had a point with making that is they wanted to make it as realistic as possible. Even though I don't love that choice, that is the reason that they did it, and they went for that, and they, for the most part, I think they succeeded in what they were trying to do.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
this one, it just felt like they were making it to make it.
Yeah, it felt like they were just making it to make it. Didn't you couldn't tell what the point was, especially since it wasn't released in theaters. It was released straight to Disney Plus,
Yeah.
and especially since they changed the ending, like the Lion King, they at least they when they copied the Lion King, they could tell that they should copy the Lion King because the Lion King was so
Hmm.
great. But with this, they changed the ending, and they changed a lot of things about this, even though it was like basically the same. The changes they made were odd. There were
Yes.
a lot of odd changes with this one.
It's like they changed a bunch of stuff that they shouldn't have changed, and they didn't change stuff that really should have been changed.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
It's just It's a weird movie.
Yeah,
It- it's
in the nicest way possible. Yeah, it's a weird movie.
yeah. Well, I think we've probably about beat this horse to death.
Yeah, no.
We probably
Yeah,
should end this podcast here because otherwise we're just going to be saying the same things over and over again.
yeah, no. I think we need to stop now. Yeah,
uh, yeah. Well, we will probably do something better than this in the future. So
yeah.
until then, do you want to let people know where they can find you?
Yeah, I have a Twitter and my handle is at ejunkie2014 and I have a blog and the website is ejunkie.blog.com. That stands for Entertainment Junkie. And on my blog and on Twitter I talk about all kinds of things. I try not to talk about the live action Pinocchio because it's just going to be a lot of negativity. But I do talk about Disney and other movies and like I love to talk about the history of entertainment on my blog. So check me out.
Okay. Well, until next time.
Yeah. Thanks for having me. Let's talk about a good movie next time.
Yes, definitely. Thanks for listening to this episode of the Disney Movie Marathon. If you like what you've heard, make sure to subscribe on your preferred podcast platform or to our YouTube channel. Make sure to follow my co-hosts as well. Any relevant links will be in the description for easy access. We'll be back soon with another brand new episode, so thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time.